The ninja nodded. Then he and the short ninja stepped into the wild stream. They started wading across. "Let's run back to the treehouse," said Jack. "No, we have to follow them," said Annie. "For Morgan's sake." Jack took a deep breath. She was right. Annie grabbed Jack's hand. Together they stepped into the water. "Yikes!" They both screamed and jumped out. It was the coldest water Jack had ever felt. It was colder than ice. It was so cold it felt like fire. "I can't go back in," said Annie, shivering. "Me neither," said Jack. "I'll have a heart attack." The ninjas looked back at Jack and Annie. Then they turned around and came back. The tall ninja grabbed Jack. "Help!" Jack cried. But the ninja lifted Jack high into the air and put him on his shoulder. The short ninja put Annie on his shoulder. Then the two ninjas stepped into the stream again. The icy wild water swirled around them. It went up to the short ninja's waist, but the ninjas moved through the stream as calmly as two sailing ships. Okay, boys and girls, this is the end of Chapter 4. You may pause the video to answer your Chapter 4 questions. Chapter 5. Flames in the Mist. The water grew shallow again. Then they were on dry land. The ninjas lowered Jack and Annie to the ground. "Thanks," said Annie. "Thanks," said Jack. "Squeak," said the mouse. The ninjas said nothing, but they looked around. Jack looked around too. A full moon was rising in the sky. Dark rocks dotted the side of the mountain. Then the ninjas started moving. They went silently up the slope between the rocks. Jack and Annie followed them. Jack wasn't afraid of the ninjas now. In fact, he was starting to like them. Maybe they really could help find Morgan. The ninjas moved silently, but Jack and Annie made plenty of noise. They panted as they climbed the rocky hillside. Their wet sneakers made squishy sounds. Suddenly, the ninjas froze. Jack could see their eyes darting around. Voices were coming from the valley below. Jack saw torches flaming in the mist. The ninjas started moving faster. Jack and Annie hurried after them. "Who's carrying the torches?" Annie asked. Jack was too out of breath to speak. He also didn't have an answer. They came up to a pine forest. Nightbirds called out. Wind rattled the branches. The ninjas moved like ghosts through the forest. They appeared and disappeared through moonlight and shadows. Jack and Annie struggled to keep up. Finally, the ninjas came to a stop. One ninja held out his hand as if to say, "Wait." Then both ninjas stepped away into the shadow of the trees and were gone. "Where did they go?" said Annie. "I don't know," said Jack. "Maybe the book can tell us." He pulled the ninja book out of his pack. He turned the pages until he came to a picture of a cave. By the light of the full moon, he read, "Sometimes ninjas held meetings in hidden mountain caves to plan secret missions." "Oh man," said Jack. "I bet they went inside a hidden cave." He pulled out his notebook and pencil. He wrote, "Meetings in hidden caves." Jack turned the page. He stared at the picture of a ninja sitting on a mat. He read, "Ninjas took orders from a ninja master. The master was a mysterious wise person who knew many secrets of nature." "Wow," whispered Jack, just when the two ninjas returned. Jack quickly put his books away. The short ninja motioned for Jack and Annie to follow. In the shadows was the entrance of a dark cave. "What's in there?" Annie whispered. "The ninja master," Jack whispered back. Okay, boys and girls, that is the end of Chapter 5. You may now put the video on pause and answer your Chapter 5 questions. Chapter 6. Shadow Warrior. Jack and Annie went into the cave. They followed the ninja through the darkness. The back of the cave was lit with dozens of candles. Shadows danced on the walls. In the flickering light, Jack saw a dark figure sitting on a woven mat. The ninja master. The ninja bowed to the master. Then he stepped to one side. The master stared at Jack and Annie. Sit, he said. Jack and Annie sat on the cold, hard floor. Squeak! The mouse poked its head out of Annie's pouch. It's okay, Peanut, said Annie. The master stared at the mouse for a moment. Then he looked at Jack. Who are you? He asked. I'm Jack, and that's my sister Annie, Jack answered. Where do you come from? The master asked. Frog Creek, Pennsylvania, Annie answered. Why are you here? He asked. We're trying to help our friend Morgan Le Fay, said Jack. She left us a message. Annie pointed to the short ninja. We gave the message to him. You mean you gave the message to her, said the ninja master, and she has given it to me. She? Said Jack and Annie together. The woman ninja's eyes sparkled. Jack thought she might be smiling. The master held up Morgan's note. Perhaps I can help you, he said, but first you must prove yourselves worthy of my help. Just then the tall ninja appeared. He made a sign to the master. The master stood up. He handed Morgan's note to Annie. We must go now, he said. The samurai are close. Samurai, said Jack. He knew that word, samurai, meant fierce Japanese fighters. Were they the ones in the valley? Jack asked. The ones with the torches? Yes, our family is at war with them, said the master. We must leave before they find us. But what about helping Morgan? Said Annie. The master strapped on his sword. I have no time now, he said. I must go. Can't we go with you? Said Annie. No, there is no place for you where we are going. You must find your way back to your house in the trees. Alone? Said Jack. Yes, you must go alone, and beware of the samurai. Why? Said Jack. They will think you are one of us, said the master. They will ask you no questions. They will show you no mercy. Yikes, whispered Annie. But you have seen the way out of the ninja. You can practice it yourselves now, said the master. How? Said Jack. Remember 3 things, said the master. What? Said Jack. Use nature, be nature, follow nature. I can do that, Annie said. Jack looked at her. You can? He said. The master turned to Jack. Your treehouse lies to the east. That is the way you must go, he said. How? Wondered Jack. How do we find the east? Before he could ask, the master bowed. Then he disappeared into the shadows. The 2 ninjas led Jack and Annie out of the cave into the moonlight. The tall one pointed at the pine forest. Then they too disappeared into the darkness. Jack and Annie were all alone. Okay, boys and girls, that is the end of chapter 6. You can answer your chapter 6 questions now, and when you are finished answering the chapter 6 questions, you may press play on the video again. Chapter 7, To the East. Jack and Annie stood still for a long moment. Annie spoke first. Well, I guess the tall ninja was pointing to the east, she said. I guess that's the way we go. Wait, said Jack. I need to write some stuff down. He took out his notebook. In the moonlight, he wrote, Number 1, use nature. Number 2, be nature. Number 3, follow nature. Look, Jack, whispered Annie. Do I look like a ninja? He looked at her. She had pulled her sweatshirt over her head and tied the strings tightly. She did look like a ninja, a very small one. Good idea, Jack whispered. He pulled his hood up too. Okay, let's go, said Annie. Jack put his notebook away. Then he and Annie headed east into the woods. They slipped between trees, and more trees, and more trees. All the trees looked the same. Jack got confused. Were they still going in the right direction? Wait, he said. Annie stopped. They both stared at the woods around them. Do you think we're still going east? Asked Jack. I guess so, said Annie. We can't just guess, said Jack. We have to know for sure. How do we know that? Said Annie. We don't have a compass. Just then the master's words came back to Jack. The ninja master said to use nature, he said. How do we do that? Said Annie. Wait, I remember something. Jack closed his eyes. He remembered something in a camping book now. Now what was it? He opened his eyes. I've got it. First we need a stick, he said. Annie picked up a stick. Here, she said. Great, now we just need a space with moonlight, said Jack. There, said Annie. They moved into a moonlit space between the shadows. Now push the stick into the ground, Jack said. Annie pushed the stick into the ground. The stick's shadow looks like it's more than 6 inches, said Jack. What do you think? It looks like it, said Annie. Okay, then that means the shadow's pointing east, said Jack. Neat, said Annie. So that way is east. Jack pointed to a new direction. At least I hope it is. We're real ninjas now, said Annie. Yep, said Jack. Maybe we are. Come on. They took off heading east, they hoped. Soon they were out of the pine woods and walking down the rocky mountainside. They moved slowly from rock to rock. Finally, they rested against a giant rock. Let's check our direction again, said Annie. Annie stuck another stick into the dirt. There, he said. He pointed to the shadow on the ground. That way. Annie peeked over the rock down the mountain. Yikes, she said softly. Jack looked too. His heart nearly stopped. There were flames of fire coming up from the mountain. The samurai! Jack and Annie ducked behind the rock. Squeak, said the mouse. Quiet, Peanut, said Annie. Jack reached into his pack. He pulled out the ninja book. I hope something in here can help us, he said. Jack flipped through the page after page until he found what he was looking for. It was a picture of the warriors wearing bamboo armor. They were holding swords. He read, the samurai were fierce Japanese fighters. They carried 2 swords to cut down their enemies. Annie tapped Jack on the shoulder. Jack looked at her. She pointed up the mountain. A figure was coming toward them. He was very near. In the moonlight, his bamboo armor was shining. His 2 swords were gleaming. It was a samurai warrior. Okay, boys and girls, that is the end of Chapter 7. You may put the video on pause and answer your Chapter 7 questions now.